O beba se smije, naučila sam se smijati beba. O, tata.
Izvadim prst.
Dođi mi facu, dođi vam. Nemoj usta mekati lučice.
Oh, he's so beautiful.
Tatinci.
I tried something different today. I decided to externally rotate my femurs or my hips when I squat as much as possible. So when I'm setting up for the squat, put my feet out, point them out as far out as possible and see what happens. Where I got that from was in the last 3 or 4 days, I've been doing a lot of overhead squatting. And what I've noticed is that the external rotation of the hips helps me stay upright, but the wide stance makes it very difficult for my hips to survive. So the wide stance I'm struggling, but the external rotation I actually feel quite comfortable if I don't go too wide. So today the bar's not over my head, the bar's in the front rack position. So I thought, okay, let me try and keep a relatively narrow stance, but really force my feet out, point them out as much as possible. Felt good. Felt really good. I felt like I was stacked. I felt like my glutes are in the best possible position to engage. And the reason why that's important for me is because when you go into a stripper squat, or when your hips are rising early, where your knees go back, your hips go back, your torso falls forward, that type of movement pattern, I feel like that can only happen if the glutes are letting that happen. So I thought to myself, okay, so what is the best position for the glutes to be mechanically positioned to engage? External rotation allows them, puts them in a shortened position, meaning they are more likely to engage there than when you point your feet straight forward, where they're kind of like disengaged, let's say, because one of the functions of the glutes is to externally rotate. So I thought, let's do that. And I felt a mind-muscle connection with my glutes through the whole way. So no longer do I go back down into the squat, pop out with my quads and my adductors, and then try and catch that momentum that I developed from the hole halfway up, above 90-degree knee bend, catch it up there when the glutes are able to catch that momentum, because they will eventually get to a position where they can exert force onto the bar through that hip extension. So I thought, okay, let's try that whole duck feet position, and it felt good, man. It felt really, really good. I was able to front squat 160 kilos today, and it felt like, a lot of the times when I squat, I don't know whether I've said this in the past, like a lot of times when I squat, I feel like I almost feel like I'm swinging a golf club. I need to hit it with precision. I need to time that bounce at the bottom. I need to do like a skillful maneuver with my body, rather than, okay, let's just push until we can't push anymore. So I've always felt like I can't push because I'm out of position. With this external rotation, I felt like I could grind. I felt like the glutes are in the picture and I can fight the bar. So that's something that I find really interesting today. And in the coming days, I'll try to do that with the back squat, do it with the SSB squat, try and do it with the overhead squat. Obviously the overhead squat is going to be a challenging one because I'll need to go a little bit wider in my stance to allow that maximum verticality of the torso. But as long as I, can engage my glutes and maximize their, mechanical advantage in the whole length of the range of motion, because I don't know, like if if you've thought about this in the past, but like when I'm setting up for the deadlift, this is something that I've kind of picked up the last few years since the deadlift has started moving really, really well. I kind of plateaued at 220 for a long time, and then I feel like this little discovery pushed me forward, and that was just simply rotating my feet outwards. And the reason why that is important is because it allows me to get into my legs, and it allows me to engage the glutes. When you have your feet perfectly forward, the glutes are off, and I feel like the quads are more on, I think. But when I rotate my feet out, point them out to like 45 degrees or whatever, I feel like I can get into that pushing muscle a little bit better. It's really interesting. Like, you can think of the glutes as a pulling muscle, right? Because it's buddy with the hamstrings and all the posterior chain. But I feel like if you engage the quads, you'll be able to do what they call a wedge. You'll be able to wedge yourself under the bar, and it's the glutes that really are doing the wedging. So it's subtle little changes of feet positioning which will allow all of this stuff upstream to behave in a different manner, simply just rotating your feet. Now obviously you need to find a balance, because when you are fully rotated out like this, this is something that was running through my mind. When you're fully rotated out 45 degrees with your feet pointing out, you go into the squat and you come back up, if you have any knee valgus, you're in big trouble, because you are now exposing your knee for snap city, because it has kilometers of knee valgus to go. So you need to be very, very mindful. So the moment you start buckling your knees in that really pointed out position, you need to be very, very careful about not snapping your knees. This is something that I've kind of like always stayed away from, because when I point my feet forward and in a narrow stance squat, even if I do buckle my legs, they don't have long to go. They'll hit each other. But when you're so rotated out in your hips, they have a long way to go. And if you're trying to ground out a weight, you don't want to get caught in that full collapsed knee, because when you have knee valgus, you are literally putting the ACL in a disaster of a position. So it's don't stand fully like feet parallel with each other, or in line with each other, 180. You don't want to go that far. Even though that's going to put the glutes in a very, very good position, you won't be able to, probably your doctors are not going to allow you to keep your knees out that far. So you're going to have feet pointing one direction, and then your femurs are going to pointing slightly in, and that discrepancy is going to put a torque in your knee, and then all sorts of troubles can happen. So this is something that I'm going to investigate a little bit more, and it's all stemming from this goal of mine to stay a bit more upright, so I can clean and jerk, so I can overhead squat and all that. I've been trying to kind of find ways to manipulate my positioning to allow that to happen. And anytime you can bias a muscle which prevents a certain position, great. Bias the glutes to contract easier, to allow a more upright position, because they will push your hips through, and that whole knees going out, feet going out, will probably prevent to a certain degree the leaning over motion. Because the glutes, once again, the glutes will be in a better position to contract, and you can't be bending over if your glutes are contracting all the way through the lift. Whereas for me, I get in the hole, I feel like the glutes turn off, and as soon as I start pushing, the quads are extending the legs, but the hips are not being extended by the glutes, and all of a sudden I have this chest falling forward. So I need to bias the glutes as much as possible. Anyway guys, that's all I got for you. I will catch you in the next one. Peace out.